I've always been very interested in the idea of service. And Montessori talks a lot about it. It's deeply woven in her text, this idea of the cosmic task. So I've been very interested in this idea. And so this theme, Saparya, serving one, serving all, was quite an interesting idea to look at. And it is an idea that is very deeply in Montessori pedagogy, but not just Montessori pedagogy. It's in many educational philosophies. And not just educational philosophies, it's in many spiritual ideologies. It's been an idea that's been looked at in the past. It continues to be looked at today. Here we are, discussing it. And I have no doubt that it will be an idea that will be looked at in the future too. As long as there are human beings, this idea of service will continue to be looked at. I am a Parsi, as you know, and as Parsis, we have some very simple 3 tenets that we're supposed to live our lives by. I say simple, but I don't think they're really simple. But here they are. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Now, some of you may know, and because it's Mumbai, I'm guessing many of you know, that the Parsis wear a sadra and a kasti. It's amazing what pops into your mind while you're preparing for a talk. Who would have thought I'd be thinking of a sadra and kasti? But here I am. So the sadra that we wear has a little pocket. And this little pocket is supposed to be a place where I deposit all the good deeds that I do. Consciously or unconsciously, it seems to be a store of all the good deeds. Can you imagine? I'm carrying a little house of Saparya wherever I go. Now today I hope to explore this idea with you. I hope to look at this idea of what service means. This is not the only idea, and we've heard speakers yesterday, we heard speakers today. There are many ways to look at it. There are many ways to do it. And I'm hoping to offer one perspective on it. It's not the right way, it's not the wrong way. As long as we're open to look at that, discuss it, we can find purpose in looking at it in that way. Service is not a slogan. It's also not a moral burden. But as I reflect on it, it seems to be a way of being. It's a way of interacting with this beautiful world that we find ourselves part of. And now I realize I don't have the clicker. Sorry. Truly not here. Okay. Okay, found it. All's good. Okay, so now because I don't just want you to take my word for it, I brought some backup, hoping, if not me, they will convince you that this idea of selfless service for the good of humanity has been an important topic that we are here discussing. It's not a new idea, like I said. It's been around, I want to say, since man has been on earth. And I'm sure you can imagine a few early men in a cave going, here's our first speaker for tonight, and he will shed some light on what we need to do with our 3 gifts. If man has hands to work, a mind to think, and a heart that loves, then service, I think, is part of the job description. So here we go. Here's my backup. Leo Tolstoy said, "Joy can only be real if people look upon their life as a service and have a definite object in life outside themselves and their personal happiness." Mahatma Gandhi said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." Mother Teresa said, "Give your hands to serve and your hearts to love." Nelson Mandela says, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." And Martin Luther King said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" So if we look at the definition of Saparya, and we have been doing that these past 2 days, we find that it just does not embody one single idea. It seems to be this beautiful blend of some deeply profound and in many ways a spiritual idea. Now, spiritual in no way means it's religious or it's about a religion, but it's more linked to the human soul and to the human consciousness. Miss Anuradha gave us a beautiful definition of it today. I must say that my Google, he or she, did not throw that up. So from what I read, it implies service, a devout service, worship, especially offered to a deity or a guru or a sacred being. Now here is the liberating part of this definition. We can substitute our own interpretation of who we consider to be that guru, who we consider to be that sacred being. And I'm sure you're all picturing someone in your mind that fits that description. So Saparya is this idea of respectful service done with a devotion and a humility. It's clear, very clear, that the emphasis seems to be more on the attitude, not just on the act itself. It's not in some way what we do as service, but I guess it's the way we do that service that matters. There's no ego, there's no pride. It's a more quiet, it's a more humble way. And that choice is ours. In essence, Saparya is this idea of selfless service in many ways like a spiritual practice. It's a way of being, it's a way of life, if I can call it that. It also means that we all have it within us to be of service if we choose to do so. But when we hear about this idea, it seems quite daunting. Are we talking about sacrifice? Am I ready to do that? It's talking about losing yourself. That's going to be exhausting. And if we think of it that way, it will be exhausting, and then we will choose to do nothing about it. But that is not what the idea means. It's quiet, it does not seek recognition, yet it's bound by laws, it's bound by rules, and it actually liberates. It comes from an understanding of an interconnectedness. It's not heroism, but acting without ego, yet at the same time, not abandoning yourself. It's not charity, but the recognition of unity. It's a sense of belonging that's expressed through action. It's an offering of an action that's done with love, it's wholehearted, it's without an attachment, there's no reward, there's no expectation. It's what the Greek call agape. Now, the Greek distinguished 7 kinds of love. They have quite a fascinating distinction between the different kinds of love. And leave it to the Greek to come up with that. So agape is this sacrificial love. It asks for nothing in return. Agape is selfless, unconditional love that expects nothing in return. In a way, agape makes Saparya possible. It's an action done with love because it ought to be done. This is what helps connect everything in the cosmos in this cohesive, peaceful, harmonious way. This is what builds community, human solidarity. We see acts of service all around us. In fact, it is something that brings harmony in the cosmos. We see this in the abiotic elements, we see this in the biotic elements. No element dominates. Each serves the other by being itself. The sun, the rocks, the water, the air, they exist in this interdependent relationship in which each does what it is meant to do, and in doing so, enables life to flourish on Earth. The Earth rotates and revolves. The sun rises and sets. The rivers carve, carry, deposit. Hot air rises. I see all my 6 to 12 classmates smiling. Yes, I know it's been 2 months and I haven't forgotten these ideas. So can you imagine if the sun was to say, "Oh, I'm tired of this." But it doesn't do that. It's good it doesn't do that. What if the sun said, "I'm only going to shine on people who appreciate me"? Then I would seriously have to start getting my Surya Namaskar together. But we're not in that kind of trouble. The sun's not going to do that. It's going to follow its laws, and in doing so, it's going to be of service to us all. Think about the bees and the flowers. The bee is not performing any charity, and the flower is not doing any favor. They serve each other by being fully what they are. Each is designed in a specific way to do its service. Giving and receiving happens spontaneously. Service is not self-sacrifice, but it's a reciprocity. There's cooperation rather than a dominance. We see the same here. There's a starling and a red deer stag. The stag doesn't control this bird. The bird doesn't dominate over this stag. Each serves the other simply by being what it is. They share a relationship in which the bird gains the food by removing the parasite, while the deer benefits from an improved health and reduced parasite burden. There is a quiet cooperation of service between them. The dung beetle. Now, interestingly, Montessori talks a lot about this species in her writing. He's quite popular in her text. Not only in her text, but the dung beetle was quite popular also with the Egyptians. So much so that it even has God status. Can you imagine a dung beetle having God status? Well, the Egyptians really did that, and that's pretty cool because they have some really cool animal gods. I think we could actually make a whole Montessori conference out of it. Now, the dung beetle quietly transforms waste into fertility. It takes what others discards and quietly returns it to life. Imagine, it takes waste and turns it into fertile soil. In my opinion, it sure deserves the status the Egyptians gave it. Well, the point of all this is not that all of them have to do the same kind of work or the same kind of service. But the fact that they are all of service is the unifying element among them all. Montessori gives a very lovely analogy of the circus in her writings. She says it's like going to a circus and finding your seat. Not all can have the best seat. She says some sit in the front, some are at the back, some are to the right, some are to the left. There are attenders that guide. And when everyone is seated, there's harmony. Imagine if they all fought for the best seat. Then it would just be chaos. But this is not so. So what about us, we the humans? If all elements seem to have a task to fulfill, then how can we not have one? It would seem that we should also have one. We sure do. But the difference with us is that we don't know what that is. We have to work it out for ourselves in relations to the environments we find ourselves in. We all have the capacity for service, but what that service will look like is not predetermined for us. Isn't that lovely? We get to choose. We have a choice. Just look around you. You will see these human acts of service everywhere. We offer, and we're recipients of this service, that we often don't even realize it or notice it. Often we take it for granted. I'm going to tell you a little story about some fish in the water. Now, there are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at these two fish and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one looks at the other and goes, "What is water?" The point of this fish story is that the most obvious realities are often the ones that are the hardest for us to see. We fail to notice what is right in front of us. If we consciously pay attention, we will really see. We will see multitudes of acts of selfless service being done by humanity all around us. Like the children said yesterday, 80,000 dabbas get moved each day. I will never forget that. What more proof do we want for these acts of selfless service in humanity? Which now brings me to this little child. The very reason we're here. We know this child is going to be an adult, and this child is going to have to find his or her purpose, and through that purpose, offer service to the rest of the social group he's part of. We often say the child is the father of man. We strongly believe that of every child. We strongly believe every child has within him the very potential to make that construction, to build that unique man he will be. But though this child has all this potential, much like the nebulae that Montessori often speaks about, he still needs an assistance that will support this formation, that will enable this becoming and belonging to his time, his place, and his culture. We find ourselves often saying this: education is an aid to life, we say. We even heard Nilima give us the meaning of this idea in a very deep, profound way. It's quite interesting to note that this is not an idea that Montessori believed herself in the start. It's not an idea she began her work with. It's an idea that developed from what the children showed her. It's what the children revealed to her that made her come to this realization. In all true honesty, with absolute humility, in what I call the true Dr. Montessori style, she gives all the credit of this discovery to the children. It is the children that helped her see what it is that they needed. It is the children that showed her that when they were offered exactly what they needed for their soul to thrive, they were able to be the best versions of themselves. Now, what is it that these children need in order to thrive? What do they need for their soul to be nourished? Often, we are so concerned about the child's physical body that we forget that there's a spirit that needs nourishment too. It is only when the child's mind and his heart are educated that he can be a person who can lead a meaningful life of value and purpose. If only it was so easy to nourish the spirit like it is the body. You could just swiggy in some vitamins for yourself right now in 5 minutes if you wanted to do that. Unfortunately, we can't do that for the spirit. The spiritual vitamins are what we need in order to become conscious of our purpose. Only then, if we offer the children these spiritual nourishments, can their mind and their body grow to become capable of meaningful service. Love is one such essential for the child's soul. Love is an idea so important that humans have since a long time tried to understand it. Love is not a simple emotion, but a complex spectrum of human experiences, each valuable in its own right. Love is both humanity's greatest blessing and one that is the most challenging of all. Love is both an art and a discipline. As humans, we are created and we have created for love, but we have also destroyed in the guise of love. Dr. Montessori spoke a lot about the idea of love and considered it to be the most potent of all. Love is at the root of being able to offer service. It is only when you love something or someone, you will defend it. You will work for its betterment. You will be able to forget about yourself and focus on what needs to be done. Children love the world that they are part of. Thankfully, in the beginning of life, nature makes it possible for children to just effortlessly, spontaneously love their world. All we have to do as adults is ensure that we in no way extinguish this love. That's all we have to do. In fact, we need to deepen and strengthen this love. If we are able to keep this love alive, then the children will naturally love their world that they are part of, and then service will come spontaneously, effortlessly from them. After all, don't we all look after what we love and care about? We will serve and protect what we fall in love with. But we cannot teach love. You cannot spell love either. We cannot preach love. Telling children they must care or that they must look after things is not going to work. It's in the very actions that we do and help them do that this love grows and gradually, over time, shows itself in service. And so this brings me to another point, that is knowledge. Only when love and knowledge come together can it lead to service. Knowledge is what the child needs to build for himself through the experiences he has, because from that knowledge comes the possibility to know what to do. And that knowledge also builds from fixing mistakes for himself, correcting them for himself. Love is what initiates, and knowledge is what enables that service. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all, said Aristotle. In The Absorbent Mind, you will find Dr. Montessori quote Khalil Gibran, who said, "Work is love made visible." And Gibran suggests that work, or service, if we want to call it that, becomes meaningful when it is an expression of love, when care, attention, and responsibility is embodied in action. Love is not just a feeling, it's not just a sentiment. In fact, if it remains like that, it has no value. It is through the work that love becomes tangible. Love naturally results in service. It is when love leads to action that it becomes tangible and has the power to transform the world and leave it in a more beautiful state than what it was before. Isn't this truly the work of man? To make his world more beautiful than he found it. Now, growing up, my sister was in love with animals. We had no pets. Yet she had developed this deep love for animals. So much so that one time, when we were out playing and she was quite young, she happened to see a baby monkey and decided she was going to go hug this monkey while the mother was there. Now, needless to say, the mother came at my sister in the defense of the baby and happened to scratch my sister a bit. It wasn't so serious. My sister's fine. We got my sister the meds and everything was fine. But now that I think back, my parents did not make a big fuss about it. But I think they decided they would help her know how to approach animals. They did not plant a seed of fear, but instead, they kept her love alive. They gave her the knowledge she needed to find acceptable ways of expressing it. She grew up holding on to this love in her heart, and it was expressed through many stray cats and dogs that we have met along the way. And as an adult, when she finally got the chance, she got herself a pet. Her love has now moved up a generation, and it has now transferred to her children. You can see my niece and nephew there, and they'll be thrilled to have made this conference. They love Habiba, that's Habiba, and they selflessly do for her. Habiba is now nearly 14 years old, and I know what you're thinking. And she's reaching the end of her life. And here you can see them, young with her, and now much older with her, feeding her the meds because she can't really get to them herself. My sister has now adopted a stray cat too. And she told us recently, guess what? I just named this cat. And you know what that means. She is completely vested now. So the power of love cannot and should not be underestimated. If we just leave our children to fall head over heels in love with this world, action will be a natural result of it. But connected so closely with this idea of love is this idea of awe and wonder, exploration, discovery. We need to remember that the child's mind is not a vessel to be filled, but it's a fire that needs to be kindled. Here's a small portion from a poem from T.S. Eliot's Little Kidding. I was struck by these few lines. The idea that exploration helps us truly understand, that it helps us know better, and is so deeply woven in these lines. To know, we need to be able to explore. What we understand deeply, we then protect. What we feel connected to, we care for. Awe and wonder are forces that shape the way the children see the world and come to know it. It is so important, as without it, there is no reason in any way for service. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you have never been struck by awe and wonder, you have not really witnessed the beauty around you. If you have found joy and love from the awe and wonder, you will work to ensure it's always safeguarded. It's never about how much information we can give our children. It's always about the emotion that's attached with that information. Tell children anything, I mean literally anything, with awe and wonder, and give them that room to explore and discover, and you will see magic. You will see love, you will see interest, you will see inquiry, you will see reflection, you will see pure joy. I'm going to tell you another story about my nephew, and you're not this nephew, another one, and you're probably thinking, well, Teenaz's home is full of these characters. And you're right in thinking so. So my nephew, he had this book that he and I read whenever he came home. It was this lovely book about the earth and the planets. He was young, and so I kept it to facts that he would appreciate as we read the book. One evening, I got a call from my brother, who asked me on the phone, "What did you say to him?" Now, mind you, we are 3 sisters, yet my brother called me only. Of course, I was the culprit in the story, but that's beside the point. And before I go any further, I want to assure you, no objects were hurt in this story. Well, just a few. And don't try this at home, or do. Okay, so my brother calls, and I've said so many things to my nephew that I'm quickly trying to think, what did I say? Now, we live on the 4th floor of an apartment building, and my nephew was dropping things down from the balcony. Of course, I knew exactly why. What do you think he was trying to work out? Yes, he was trying to work out gravity for himself. It was something we had read about just a few days prior. And so, the Montessori in me was leaping with joy, though I'm not going to tell my brother that. Now, what I want you to take away from this story is not that I was happy he was throwing things from the balcony. Of course, that's not okay, and we spoke about it. But the fact that he was in awe and wonder about this amazing phenomenon and wanted to check it out for himself, that was joyful. My nephew is now grown up from that stage, and he was recently home over the Christmas break. And as tradition goes, he came over, he was having a sleepover, and he rang the bell, and I opened the door, and with enthusiasm, he came running in all animated spirit of a 9-year-old, saying, Tinufui, you won't believe it. My whole mind is blown. And I thought, this is going to make a good story. Do tell me, why is your mind blown? And he said he had heard something quite recently about dinosaurs and reptiles and fossils and proof of some avian features with dinosaurs. And he said, my mind is blown. I cannot believe it. Again, the Montessori in me was leaping with joy. And I thought to myself, I hope your mind gets to be blown forever. We cannot teach selfless love. It must grow as a perception. If we protect and nurture this awe and wonder, then we give room for exploration and discovery. We give room for learning, and then learning becomes easy, and teaching becomes easy. We don't need to be a botanist. We don't need to be a zoologist. We don't need to be a mathematician. We don't need to be a singer. We don't need to be a dancer. You just need to offer it with heart and enthusiasm. When children are moved by the ordinary things, when they can see the beauty in the simplest of things and realize nothing is insignificant, then everything becomes of value. Everything becomes worthy of service. We must ensure that the children's sense of wonder is indestructible, that it becomes their source of strength and service. But imagination is what naturally stems from this awe and wonder. It enables humans to be able to see much more and much beyond themselves. It enables the possibility for empathy, compassion, even creativity. Without the imagination and what the imagination allows us to create, we would have no civilization. Having said that, I must clarify that it's not about I simply create whatever fancies my imagination. But instead, my imagination soars from knowledge, soars from the love, the awe, the wonder, and the discoveries that I have made from having experienced the reality of my world. Reality is what helps a child understand the truth, understand the limits, understand the consequences. It teaches responsibility and cultivates humility. It helps a child know that he shares this world with many others. He, in fact, is alive and thriving because of the work of others. This enables a self-discipline of what can be created. It enables the ability to consider, one, that does this need to be created? And two, how will it affect the lives of others? Yesterday and today, we saw what the children's imagination created, what it was capable of creation. But in each of them, we saw value to the community, value to the social group. They weren't standing here saying, we're trying to work out a 20-kilo tomato and how to make it. It wasn't that. Education that holds reality, imagination, creativity in balance prepares the child not only to understand the world, but to serve it. Reality grounds the child in the truth and responsibility. Imagination cultivates empathy and moral vision. Imagination allows the child to envision possibilities not yet even realized. It connects the inner life to the outer reality. And creativity, in turn, enables that thoughtful action. So reality, imagination, creativity helps the child become grounded, empathetic, capable of meaningful action. From this integration comes this selfless service, naturally, not an obligation, but a meaningful response. But none of this will be possible without the children being free to interact with their world. Without the freedom, no service is going to be possible. And without the freedom to actually be able to choose and utilize that will, none of it is going to take place. On the other hand, if there's only freedom, we're not going to be able to do anything. If there are only limits, we're still not going to be able to do anything. So the freedom with these limits allows us to interact and be of service in the most productive way. Trees are free, yet rooted in the ground. Rivers are free, yet they flow in governed laws. Planets are free, yet they stay in their orbit. Natural laws do not restrict life. They make life possible. Likewise, selfless service is not chaotic generosity. It's ordered. It's a sustained contribution. When we trust children with freedom and we offer very clear expectations, they not only experience that trust, but they in turn rise up to meet that expectation. Discipline or self-control is vital for the child to build for himself if he is to serve humanity. The will must be strong. It must guide his choices. Knowing when to do, what to do, not to do, with whom to do. This is what we have to help the child do for himself. He needs to think for himself, act for himself. These cannot come if the child doesn't know the natural limits and how to work within them. So service requires an inner freedom, but it's guided by discipline and self-control. The limits do not constrain service, they sustain it. The limits that are self-imposed is a sign of a responsible action. It is also an expression of gratitude. In all of Montessori's work, you will find this thread of gratitude. She held this idea of gratitude quite high in her work. As humans, we deeply rely on each other to meet our needs. We can't do this alone. We heard Irene, and in her talk, she talks about the baker who needs the butcher, the barber, the dressmaker, and they each in turn need each other and the resources from nature. We depend on so many to sustain life. We have built communities, civilizations through this interdependence. We have built unique ways of lives and culture through the work that we do in these environments. Isn't it such a deeply moving and profound idea that whom you will never meet, whom you don't even know, contribute to our lives? History is full of such stories. When children experience this interdependent whole, they begin to see that their life matters, that their life is of value, that they have something special to offer to the world that they are part of. Nilima gave us a lovely example of that yesterday, of how one child scrubs the table, another child washes those dirty cloths, another one irons them. That's Saparya in action. Gratitude, when felt, awakens a sense of responsibility, which in turn then propels action. When gratitude and responsibility come together, work becomes meaningful and purposeful. Today, there are many studies being done on what makes us happy. I think human beings are trying to figure out the formula of a happy life. And you'll be amazed to see that gratitude comes in each of these lists. So much so that we are now beginning to think that it is not being happy that makes us grateful, but rather that being grateful makes us happy. I want to tell you a story about Arthur. No, he's not my nephew. I used to read aloud in my classrooms in the afternoons. And before I read any book, I would make it a point to tell them the name of the author and the illustrator. Now, I would be lying to you here if I said I did it because I wanted them to feel gratitude for the book. It was just something I did. Arthur didn't do much in the classroom with the materials, except read. So I guess he probably did the most amount of work in that room. One day, out of nowhere, he came to me and said, in all that seriousness of that 5-year-old he was, and he said, "Miss Reporter, I have decided what I'm going to be when I grow up." Of course, this got my attention. So I played along and said, "What have you decided to be, Arthur?" He said, "I am going to be an illustrator." And that was it. Conversation over. We cannot teach gratitude, love, awe, wonder, self-control, or responsibility. It is experienced. It needs to be lived and witnessed in the day-to-day workings of the life of the child. With children, it's not about these grand gestures of service that come from gratitude and responsibility. It's in the simple acts of someone preparing snack for the whole class to eat, someone watering the plants, someone going out to get the weekly supplies for the pet, someone maintaining or mending the fence of the farm. We need an eye to see it. We need an eye to see it and the restraint not to destroy it. We have to inhibit ourselves in order not to destroy this creative energy that guides the child. Because it's the child who creates. We do not. Montessori, in many of her writings, talks to us about this child. She calls this child the hero. He's trampled upon, he gets up. He's pushed down, he gets up. She calls this child this vision of good and all the obstacles that he faces, signs of evil. In the book, The Child in the Family, there's even a reference to a Japanese legend of Sai no Kawara. And this is a legend of children building stone towers and the evil knocking this tower down, but the children building this tower again. She was outspoken in her emphasis that the work of the adult is like that of the ancient Roman priestesses, whose task was to simply keep the sacred fire alive, never to have been extinguished. A kind of letting go needs to take place if we are to liberate ourselves from this omnipotence that we think we have. We feel without us, the child will not be able to do anything. We as a society think of it so much that we have now begun to believe it. We call it the truth. But we really need to rid ourselves of this idea. We need to rid ourselves of this bias. You just need to recall what you saw yesterday on stage and what you saw today in the videos to realize that is far, far away from the truth. Let me ask you a little riddle. And if you know the answer, please do not answer. It goes like this. A father and a son were going by car, and suddenly they meet with an accident. The father dies on the spot, and the son is rushed to the hospital. When the son is taken into surgery, the surgeon looks at the boy and says, "I can't do this surgery. This is my son." How is this possible? Now, please raise your hand if you thought the surgeon was the mother. Yeah. And those of you who did not, and now that I say it is the mother, isn't it the most obvious answer? Yes. But we have implicit bias. And this bias clouds the way we look at the children. What is right in front of us, we cannot see because this bias clouds the way we see the children. This implicit bias becomes a barrier. And we need to be aware of this for ourselves. And getting rid of this bias is paramount in our work with the children if our children need to realize their potential to serve. Some of you may have heard of Jane Elliott. Have you heard of her? She's very famous for what is called the brown eyes and the blue eyes experiment, and I urge you to watch it. It is something she did in a classroom with young children the day after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. She did it as an experiment to highlight racial discrimination. But the experiment threw light on so much more than what she was expecting. On the first day, she told the blue-eyed children they were superior, they got all the privileges, and she made the brown-eyed children wear a scarf, and she took all privileges away from them. And she watched the dynamics unfold. The next day, she flipped it. Now, the brown-eyed were the ones who were told they were superior, and the blue-eyed were given the scarves and told they were inferior, they had to stay at the back, and the privileges were taken away from them. She said in a matter of just 2 days, the children had changed from a cohesive, whole, friendly unit to not being kind to each other. They seemed to have believed in what this teacher had told them. They seemed to have trust this perspective of this adult who gave them that information and began to live it, embody it. It's a profound experiment if you think about it. But it's an experiment that leaves us thinking, are we doing things like that? Are we? It's something to think about because our children will reflect a lot of what we think of them. And how they interact with the world will depend on a lot of what we think they are capable or incapable of doing. And this is necessary if service must come from them towards the whole of mankind, not a selected few. Our work is not easy. In no way is our work easy. And I'm not standing here saying, it's so easy, come on. I know it's hard. I read an article by Dr. Jean Miller. And it's an article that she wrote in the NAMTA Journal, or for the NAMTA Journal. Now, here's the highlight. It was in spring of 1976 that this article was put in that journal. And in that, she talks about Montessori pedagogy being this delicate balance between opposites. I thought that was fantastic. A delicate balance between opposites. Freedom, discipline. Useful help, useless help. Intervene, withdraw. Work, rest. Too much, too little. It's a balance between action and inhibition. Now, no one can do that for us. No one can help us find that balance. We have to find it for ourselves. Because our children need us to find that balance. They need us to be our best so they can be the best versions of themselves. So each time You make it possible for the child to love, to care, to explore. Be assured, a kinder, peaceful, harmonious humanity is in formation. It's inching towards a peaceful humanity. When we serve one child with respect and dignity, we serve all of humanity. I would like to end with a few words from Dr. Jane Goodall's last words to humanity. And again, this is something I urge you to watch. She says, I want to make sure that you all understand that each and every one of you has a role to play. You may not know it, you may not find it, but your life matters, and you are here for a reason. And I just hope that reason will become apparent as you live your life. I want you to know that whether or not you find that role that you're supposed to play, your life matters. That every single day you live, you make a difference in the world. And you get to choose the difference that you make. May our work be love made visible. May we always see the water. May our classrooms, homes, our schools, our offices be places of knowledge, love, and service. May we help our children find their role in the cosmos. May we never lose hope and continue serving one, serving all. Thank you.